That's right, chat. A Maxnomic chair is all you need for the SBL to make sure that you are comfortable while you watch it. I don't just love it. Lala also loves it, and she's having a tough time letting me turn around so I can talk to you. Yeah, we love you too, Lala. But we gotta do the desk as it comes through. Get yours! Need for seat right now. Smite Max is exactly what you need. Lala approves as well. Look, the dogs love it. You're gonna love it. I love it. So go ahead and go use it. And, well, while you're at it, you're not only going to get a comfy chair that will, well, help you rest while you relax and watch some phenomenal games, you're also going to get a ward skin that is going to help you see people in the game. That is going to make a big difference for you. So I recommend it. Of course, go to needforseat.com right now to go ahead and order yours using code SMITEMAX at checkout. That's going to do it for the chair, and, well, I guess the dogs, they've left me now, Mifflin. They don't care to watch the rest of the games, even though we have SSG and Renegades coming up against each other. It should be another great set.
Yeah, I mean, it really should be. I'm not speaking highlight plays here. It really looks like it's going to be SSG who's coming out ahead, but I like talking about the underdogs. And inside of Renegades, my eyes are going to be on that duo lane and the junglers. I think if Barra and Awesome Jake are able to do something a little bit unorthodox and pull a slight lead out of duo, it could really result for some trouble in SSG. If Lazara gets off to a strong start, maybe he should be able to find some pressure into Dardes in the mid. But even then, Renegades are coming in with that underdog mentality because SSG are looking mighty strong right now.
And I think, the Renegades, in my mind, having just taken a game, not a set, a game individually off of Ghost, kind of opens up the door for them to be in that conversation of these top teams, because you don't just take a game off of Ghost. Like, you don't accidental your way into a game off of Ghost. You have to do some hard work to get there. So even though their record isn't showing it, I think they have showcased some of play that, unfortunately, it does look like that middle-of-the-pack mentality, but honestly, when you look at the top level of the competition, middle of the pack is still pretty damn good in the SBL. Puts you in the likes of Sanguine right now, so it's definitely somewhere you want to be. But, we were talking about it, and playstyle specifically, and, we get to see SSG and Ghost on Sunday, which is going to be a fun one to watch, but SSG, you had highlighted at the end of the last set as being this more methodical team. They're a little slower, very European in nature when it comes down to it. If you've watched the Challenger circuit either in years past or the way that the European League was when it was separated, it really is this, get a kill, but then focus on the map, focus on the farm. What can we get that doesn't seem tangible, but it's those intangible things in Smite that get you all of a sudden a 10k lead out of nowhere, at least it feels like.
Yeah, I would say that iRaffer hasn't changed his methodology, hasn't changed his ideology on how to approach a Smite game in over 5 years. He's got this same mentality every single time. Every single team he's been on has approached every game the same way, and it's exactly as you highlighted. Play it slow, play our pace. Don't get dragged into anyone else's pace. I don't care that these North American-style teams are looking to fight us right now. What are they fighting over? Nothing. Let's go back to farming the back camps. That's why even in games where we see SSG fall behind in slash line, maybe they're down 1 kill to 4, they're either maintaining an equal XP and gold deficit, or they're even slightly ahead, and it's because they just really do play that map at such a high level.
I mean, you can see it throughout all these highlights. Not high kills. In fact, here they're up a game in the set against SSG. They're down in kills compared to what you see against Sanguine, but it doesn't slow down Spacestation in terms of farm and in terms of where they go. I look at specifically here, I think Dardes, one of the players, unfortunately kind of hurt right now with Hera not being in the game, not able to bring out someone that has worked very well for Spacestation, but outside of Hera has had a pretty solid year. I think this is looking really good from them from the mid lane, and I think SSG as a whole, from top to bottom, while they have their own style, they know what it is, they know their picks, and they come into the game prepared for it.
I agree, and I'm glad that you highlight Dardes, because I would say that he's the one player on SSG who really is kind of that wild card. He brought Hera out of nowhere. He was one of the first people to play Aphrodite in mid in Season 7. He's the guy who's trying to experiment around with his team, and it seems like the rest of SSG is kind of forming up around him and making the comp work with whatever Dardes needs to do. And if that's what they're going for, that's who the player they decide to play through, I mean, you can't go wrong. Dardes is a beast.
And, I mean, we've seen it time and time again. I expect we'll see some of it today, although it will be up to Venenu and the rest of the Renegades to maybe try and shut him down. I look towards Venenu just because of the counter matchup, but the Renegades on the other side of the coin really are the team that they have so much high potential. But unfortunately right now their consistency seems to be the key issue. Specifically, we were talking about it a little earlier. I was saying, man, Venenu could be the big matchup for Dardes, but you mentioned it's the duo lane for Renegades that really can just pull everyone ahead with them.
Yeah, I think all of maybe every single one of Renegades' games is kind of on the back of the 408 a little bit, because there's two versions of the 408. There's the one that you're going to get in your ranked queue at 2 a.m. who's going to drop a fat Fido and cost you a little bit of elo, or there's the one who locks in the Ymir, finds perfect walls every time, confirms every single objective with that ultimate, controls the lane. Maybe he locks Osiris in an SPL game, maybe he locks Tyr. It doesn't really matter if he's able to play it confidently and play it well, but that high degree of variance is really what comes to bite Renegades all 50% of the time.
Honestly, I'm a sucker for some good Ymir walls. As someone who has been playing him since 2012, it makes a very big difference to me to see good Ymir play. And so I love seeing that, accompanied with Bera, who, notably has not been playing the Freyas and the Oleruns, has been playing the Sol and the Jingweis. So a little bit of the new flavored with a little bit of the old. The mix seems to be working out pretty well here for the Renegades. And they've got 5 guys that, again, seem to know what they're doing. It's just the consistency that's going to be the question. And today they have to prove their mettle against a team that, admittedly, consistency is key. You make one mistake, you give them an inch, SSG will take a mile. So we'll have to see how that's going to work. So we move into picks and bans here for game number 1. I'm excited to see how this goes. Notably, Cthulhu bans missing in the last set, and notably, Cthulhu was a monster last set. So we'll have to see if SSG or Renegades want to maybe prioritize him, or if it is still this Persephone, Freya, Oleron talk.
I think we really won't see Persephone or Freya make it through in the SPL. Week 1, you should have got your fill there, because those gods are so absolutely dominant that I don't imagine any team's willing to make that trade. And as far as Cthulhu goes, I don't think either Renegades or SSG are willing to take it into the support role. We haven't really seen either team take it into solo either. I think really it's going to come down to, how are you going to prioritize and pick out the strongest mid laner? How are you going to get the strongest soul laner? Because as far as supports go, both of these teams are a little bit unorthodox. I don't have to go into why Jake's kind of weird, but even Raffer is looking at gods like Bacchus. He's looking at the Jingshens. He's looking at the Kuzenbos. He doesn't play this standard Hercules, or he maybe sometimes if he gets fully banned out, he will fall to that Khepri. I think really the contested picks to look at are that mid lane.
And I already highlighting it, Persephone was mentioned, but she's banned anyway, so who cares? But you had mentioned Dardes' Aphrodite, and that's the first one that the Renegades get rid of. Yes, Aphro might be good elsewhere, or I should just say anyway, but I think it's definitely a double-edged sword here. SSG not going to have that one. They actually ban the Xingqian here, something that you had highlighted as Raffer, but this is also something that, Jake has been picking up and has been doing well with. So I'm curious where they want to go. Freya, Oleron off the board, which means Sol, which Barracuda has been loving, still available. Chronos still available. We'll have to see if either team opt into some of those mage carries. But it's Cthulhu first pick overall, and again, we keep talking about it, but I want to see Solar Troll run in this.
I would too, but I won't count it out. We've seen Cthulhu support really struggle. It seems like United's the only team that's really willing to keep going back to that wheelhouse. But when Awesome Jake 408 is on your team, any singular god, 110 characters in the game, get locked in first pick by Renegades, I mean, you've got a coin toss on whether or not that's going to go into the support. And it really could, and it could keep SSG guessing. Taking Cthulhu first off is going to open up SSG to get some pretty strong picks themselves. Picking up Amaterasu and Jingwei. Amaterasu, obviously, an incredibly strong soul laner, both for just sustain in lane and the ability to engage once those team fight phase rolls around. And this Jingwei getting picked up for boat means that that's one of Barracuda's best picks. It's what he really falls back to when he goes into Hunter, immediately stripped away.
And I want to stop you when you're wrong. The problem is you just don't seem to be wrong, at least not today that you're pulling out things. Well, I don't know. You did vote for Obey on the pre-show. But we can get into that some other time. Either way, the way things are going, you get Cthulhu, Soul over here, And the thing that I really latched onto is the fact that you immediately were mentioning, yeah, Jake could play, like, theoretically, Jake could play any 3 of these. I've seen the man lock in Neath support, so you do know he has that flexibility. But more than likely, having the Soul come online for Barracuda, I would assume a lot of sustain over here. But it's her matchup versus Jing Wei that I'm kind of curious of. What do you think about the way this is going to go in the duo lane?
It's going to be really hard for either one of them to really have any kill potential on each other once it becomes a 1v1 in lane. Soul is incredibly safe. Disapparate's one of the best disengage tools in the game. Now let's go look at Jingwei. Well, the Tailwind, the ability to use that ultimate, some of the best disengage tools in the game. If either one of them fall low, they can immediately go back to base and then use the mobility in their kit to get to lane incredibly fast. I mean, I think it's just going to be a farm fest post 6 minutes once those supports rotate out.
Now Nemesis locked in for Space Station. Cherio more than likely. It feels weird. Like, Cthulhu's Soul feels good. Raven's like in that middle ground for me at least. But Amaterasu, Jingwei, Nemesis. You get top picks in 3 roles in your first 3 picks there for Space Station. So ban's going pretty well for them. Morrigan, Fafnir going to be joining out there. Kronos banned away, so that is all of the typical mage carries. We did see Poseidon being built up a little bit last week. We also saw a little bit of Ao Kuang, but maybe not at the forefront of Renegade's mind this time around as they ban out the Achilles last of all. So if you're looking for a mid laner here, I think on either side, are you looking for the burst like Scylla, or are you maybe expecting some more of that kind of Poseidon, maybe auto attack damage oriented play?
For Renegades, I think I am looking for maybe a later game pick, especially with this Raven likely going in the jungle. You can afford to take something that's a little bit weaker in the early game, a la Scylla or something along those lines, because you have that pressure coming out of the jungle to make up for that lackluster early. For SSG, mid laners go, I might be leaning towards something with a little bit more early pressure because you have Nemesis in the jungle, who is traditionally slightly weaker in that early game. No real confirmable CC or anything along those lines. So maybe Poseidon comes to mind, someone who's able to clear out very early on or at least play safe himself, maybe even an Agni.
Well, it's going to be Cerberus Neath here that comes down for Renegade. So, ability burst, yes. Physical damage instead of the magical damage, though. Alongside that Cerberus, and, with Ghost, it was maybe a little bit easier to say, yes, fine, okay, should be taking this Cthulhu. Do you think that Cerberus is going to come in here for Jake?
I think it really could, yeah. I'll go ahead and say the 408 is going to be piloting that Cerberus. It's really good in lane. It's going to make up for the fact that Soul's going to be struggling for the first 5 levels just to clear wave. And just the kill pressure in a Jingwei, that slow is going to be hugely impactful pre-5. Cerberus is an incredibly strong pick. And having Neath in mid means that every single lane on your map becomes a kill lane, barring maybe just Neath's lane herself. Use that global ultimate to help out with every single gank. Raven in the jungle is going to be constantly looking for fights. Pair that with just that huge burst damage and that stun, and recently we've seen Neath go for this more ability-based build with Heartseeker and the maces. She's going to be swinging for the fences with that ultimate.
Well, I got to ask you about this one because it kind of catches me off guard. Chang'e is going to shimmy her way into the draft here for Space Station. I think we got to see her, once maybe in the first phase. So she's not foreign to the Pro League, but she definitely doesn't come here often. Anti-heal is usually what I like to go in for, but what do you think really is going to drive her here for SSG?
I think it's just the ability to poke out the enemy laner. Chang'e is one of the best battle mages in the game. Her mobility doesn't get sacrificed when she uses abilities. Constantly looking for that pressure. She's able to stay in lane an incredibly long time. She's got decent CC to set up for Nemesis ganks, but she's also got that degree of safety inside of her second ability, almost like the overhead kick from Raven, that makes it much, much harder to gank her than your traditional mage. But that said, Dardes is the weirdo of SSG, so it does make perfect sense to me that he's going to be playing the weird pick.
Yeah, he's brought in the Aphrodite. He played Hera. Now we might be able to see him play this Chang'e. We'll have to see what SSG want to do and how it works out here as we go down to game number 1 versus the Renegades.
Thank you, Gormizer and Mifflin. It is Dulcin and Hindu Man on the call for Renegades versus SSG. And, of course, Doug working the cameras for us. Now, Graham, I think a good springing off point for us to get into this game is kind of where the desk sort of left things off, and it's Dardes on this Chang'e. Yeah. And I think it's just such a good matchup. If you want to look specifically at Venenu's ultimate and that World Weaver and what this Neath looks to do, a high degree of safety for Dardas there in the mid lane.
I'll agree, it can definitely help out against that as we watch Cherio get pinched. He should be okay getting away from here, honestly, but he is forced into dash, which may come back to hurt. I actually want to talk about the reason for this. If you look at the draft from both these two teams here, Dave, you can see that Lasbra is playing the Raven, Sol for Barracuda, right? What are the two things that those two have? Really good escape options. The overhead kick from Raven and the disapparate from Sol. And if you look at Cthulhu in the solo lane, the biggest issue carries have had against Cthulhu's is when he runs it down at them. They can't escape. They can't survive long enough. He just continues to whittle away the health bar. And by Renegades drafting those two, it limits the god pool a little bit of where Spacestation can look. Think a little bit about what Boat's playing. Jingwei, very good at escaping. Same can be said for Chonga. It's going to give him a bit more survivability when the Cthulhu train begins. And I think that's the real reason we see this pick here. And not to do with most of the other stuff that has been mentioned. I think it's to do with dealing with the Cthulhu the only way you can, which is run and survive.
Yeah, and you can't even do that some of the time with the Cthulhu that we've seen today. It's, you know, Fine OK has looked fantastic. SOT is going to have a chance to prove Cthulhu in the solo lane if somehow it's not proven enough already up to this point. Actually, I liked the kind of segment you guys had on the SPL waiting room today about the sort of support meta. You blink in, get the ghost minion, get yourself to level 2 a little bit earlier. But it's bit Jake, I think, a little bit early on here. He took maybe a little bit more return damage than he was levying for in that moment. Won't really maybe sway that lane one way or another. But it is difficult now. You're fighting into a Yamoja and a Jingwei that has some decent setup potential early on in the game.
And that's fair, but you've got to think about kill potential in the lane too, and realistically, Cerberus is one of the better Guardians, and I think that's one of the reasons we see the rise in the dual lane, not just because of sustain and how his passive works, but I think it's also because of the fact that his level 2 is pretty potent. Remember, he's got the ghastly breath that, you know, does percent damage, and he's got a pretty viable stun that does decent damage too. So his danger level definitely increases there, and it's one of the reasons I think we're seeing a little bit more play out of that young little pup as well.
And you know, I think it fits Jake's playstyle pretty well. Anyone that can jump in, and the more people that are around you, the better. Cerberus absolutely can be that type of playstyle. So I expect big things from Jake here in this set with the Cerberus. We've obviously seen some good data on it in our previous set. PBM looking good on the dog out of the long lane as well. And I wonder now, sort of where maybe your thought process is on this, because the desk, I think, weighed heavily, or figured that this matchup would weigh heavily out of this long lane. You look at Raffer and Vote versus Jake and Barracuda. Does that make some sense to you? Do you think that the Renegades are kind of hoping that Jake and Barracuda can find themselves a little bit of a lead here, and that's where the Renegades might find the advantage in this set?
I think most of the time it's expected. When you look at a Jingwei Yamoja duo lane, I mean, Yamoja's got some clear, right? Jingwei not so much in the early game. But look at their opposition too. Cerberus, great wave clear. Sol, great wave clear overall. So you're expecting to see some pressure over here. The question really is where is Spacestation going to try and make up ground when Renegades look to get a lead in that duo lane, which is slowly being established over time. However, did get denied a little bit as you saw that purple invade didn't go the way they wanted because Rafa managed to secure it there. This is definitely a game of patience from Space Station here with the composition they've really drafted. Expect them to be very much on the counter initiation during the early game here. Jake will probably be the initiator alongside Lasbra most of the time, but watch out for Cherio and watch out for Rafa turning up to the battle to make sure they can scrap once the fight starts. As we develop towards the mid and later stages, that's when Space Station will start to gather as a unit a little bit more and really be able to cause problems for you.
Well, that's been the MO of this, sort of SSG squad, is they'll kind of slow play you for a little while and then suddenly turn on the jets. Here's maybe the first bit of an engagement that we could see. Vote has the beads, uses it, mitigates the stun but not the damage, and Lasbra's there to follow up, and down goes Vote for first blood.
Beautiful start, and that's what we're looking for. We're looking for this Raven to get off to a good start. Nemesis, sure, early game, a little bit weaker, got a bit of improvement in terms of a wave clear, and that's why you can see Cherry on the right-hand side. Dual lane gets ganked, I'm not there, but what I will do is try and punish them with a lead in terms of gold and experience, where I can and limit that. It doesn't reflect that now, but it shows what Space Station's game plan has been, and we've seen that, Dave, so far towards the second phase, where Space Station fall behind in kills, but they keep a lead in gold and experience overall. We'll see if they can get back to that trend, though, or end up making me look stupid, which is kind of what we like to do to casters anyway.
Yeah, it's effectively a half-level lead for everyone. On the scoreboard now it looks even, but SOT, Lasber, even Venenu, and Barracuda were all one level ahead of their counterpart just a moment ago. Vote has to use the ultimate there to get out of that fight. That's the burst damage that this Soul will bring to the table. We've talked about these magical ADCs kind of ad nauseum at this point here in Phase 2, and what some bring, what others don't. Might have to return to that topic as Cheerio has found maybe a kill onto Lasber. Drops the ultimate down. Lasber, no ultimate of his own to speak of. SOT will peel out for his jungler. So no kill there for Cheerio, but now Venenu has to backflip his way away. Looking for those engagements is SSG, but great disengage from the Renegades.
Bit of a weird skirmish there. I think Lasber could have walked back towards mid. His pathing wasn't the greatest. I think he was a little bit worried about waxing Moon from Darkness potentially through mid, so he jukes towards Solo. That forces Solo or Troll to help out there. But you can see the method to the madness. You saw the gank from Lasber. He used his ultimate. That gets called by Space Station. And so as soon as Cheerio sees Raven again, he's like, okay, I'm at ult you because you've not got the ult to escape from me. Maybe I can run you down and cause some problems there. It's good thought process coming out from both two teams there. I just think Renegade's path in there for Lasber is a little bit awkward. I do want to say though, Dave, we've not spoken about Cthulhu much, but this is his home, the solo lane.
It is.
I don't want to hear no more talk about these Guardian support, this Guardian Cthulhu. It don't work. He's not a peel god. He's an aggressive god. You want aggressive gods to be ahead, and voting ahead right now. Why didn't they dive that? So surprised.
Agreed. Raffer was close and did have the River's Rebuke, so maybe that slowed down the Renegades, but no beads for Vote, and they knew that, at least for the next 15 seconds off of cooldown. Now Venenu realizing that Cheerio does plenty of damage up to this point. Cheerio left limping away a little bit, but look at the immediate answer, and it's what you previously pointed out there, Hindu. Cheerio goes right to some of those Harpies, clears out some of that jungle. Unfortunately, speed buff not up right at that moment, so Lasber will get that. But Cheerio, a good answer to Lasber looking for some early pressure.
Yeah, great. I've got to give credit where it's due to that left-hand side. I know I said Renegades on initial impact. I'm like, why didn't they dive that? Because I believe Vote's ultimate was still on cooldown. But it does look like it was just coming up, so maybe the timers were right to disengage from that. Lasber used his ult to kind of close the gap and get in range in the first place. But I do think there was a potential still pick chance for Vote, but it might have been answered back by Space Station, and that's something we spoke about earlier, the counter initiation, which I think we'll see Space Station do. So it's probably better not to make a mistake by overextending a little bit too much and continue to just grow this lead through the early game.
You know, it's sort of surprising, I think, to look at any team that's going to put this much pressure on a Jing Wei just due to how safe she is, but obviously showing good kind of mentality around keeping track of those cooldowns. We know her ultimate was down just a few moments ago, so finding those small windows is something I think the Renegades have struggled with in the past, or at least showing the ability to kind of grow from that and really start to strike at SSG early on here. Now, kind of back to a previous thought I was having. Interesting, I think. Barracuda has not shied away from picking up this Soul. I don't know the official stats, but I'm going to throw a dart and assume that Barracuda has played Soul probably more than most of the other hunters in the league. She's usually the one that's left up through picks and bans. But he doesn't usually rush right into this Hecate build, gets a little of the early lifesteal online with the Trinket, actually might move in to the Bancrosser Typhons. And again, I might have to drop here as an ultimate is going to fly through from Venenu. Won't result in much as Jake ends up going down, and SSG have now answered back with a kill of their own.
Yeah, we'll talk a little bit about this in a second, but that was just Jake being too far forward with no real support around. Look at where the rest of the team are now, currently, when you look at the map, compared to how deep Jake was, just trying to get a very deep ward on the left-hand side. In fairness, that's good strategy from Space Station Gaming, realizing that they're too far forward, and now they can try and answer some pressure on the left. They get the beads out of the Soul. Such a huge win for Rafa and Vote there after the pickup of Jake too.
And I wonder if that maybe opens the door for Cheerio to start to move towards this left side of the map. But you look at the ward coverage now that SSG have, they're going to know everywhere that the Renegades are, especially on that back side of the jungle. The red buff is warded out, the purple buff, all the entrances to that side of the map warded here for SSG. And Disapparate, obviously very strong, we've talked about that, but now no beads. This is a good window for SSG to maybe find an opening on the left side of the Renegades front.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think SSG are still looking for advantages on the right, but just with the map placement Renegades have, they're trying to use the position of Space Station. Like, can we get aggressive here? We know we've got a dominant dual lane right now. Is there anyone in the area? We've got deep walls to see him coming, you know? But the pings go down on Nemesis, and then look at the left-hand side of the map. We got a grouping of Renegades happening, knowing that Cherio's not around, and Vote's pounced out on the tower already. It looks like it was a red buff attempt at the same time there, Dave. But you can just see how Renegades are using these wards to try and find the advantage against Space Station and not get caught on the return of the re-engage.
Well, where else would Jake be except immediately on the front line of the fight? Venenu's going to answer with a World Weaver. Here's the Riptide. Enough! Oh, not enough, because Lasbra jumps on down. See you later to Raffer, and the Renegades have now found their second kill in 10 minutes, both on their jungler.
Love it, love it. I mean, they realize Cherio's on the right-hand side, so they're like, yeah, keep the pressure rolling on the left. Why not? Now you can see Lasbra now rotating around to the left-hand side here to look again towards Vote. No real ward placed down here, but Vote should smell danger soon with how far up Barracuda is.
Could be the bait from Barra, half HP, beads, and ultimate, both ready to go here for
coming.
Vote. Jake blinks himself forward, airstrike up and over. Barracuda playing separated, but Cherio, he's here as well. Down goes the ultimate. Barracuda so low, and Cherio finishes off the kill. Dardes is rotated over as well. Down goes Lasbra. This is a fight that the Renegades wanted to start, but SSG finish it off. I'm not sure Venenu is going to have much to say about it, not if he wants to die. Dardes moves himself in. Nika, he's moved his way around the backside. SOT rotates over from Solo. This is a full 5v5 fight minus the dead, and Nika will finally get rid of the Renegades mid laner. 3 for none as we stand, but this Cthulhu Graham, so hard to
Beautiful! Beautiful, but look at that wall coming down as well from Raph. It just keeps him pinned inside. Cthulhu gets limited by those walls, so he can't continue that chase down. But one by one, like a domino effect, that's going to be a Gold Fury on top now, I feel, for Space Station Gaming. And maybe they're a little bit worried about respawns, funny enough, but that was an interesting play overall. Barracuda telegraphs the gank, steps up to Vote when there's a whole minion wave in front of Vote too. Vote recognizes there's danger coming because he's like, why is Barra this far up? I'm a bit confused here. So he buys as much time as possible. Instead of trying to run back towards his tower, he lulls them all deeper, makes him look even more overextended. He knows he's got his ultimate up. This buys time for Cherio, Dardes, and Rafa to all collapse on that point. And look at how Cherio played the fight too, by the way. Uses his ultimate on Awesome Jake to get those extra protections that those Guardians give, and full focuses down the Sol instead. Just making sure he's tanky enough and limits some of what Jake's going to have in survivability too. Really well played from Space Station, but Renegade saw it coming, man. You know, I feel like that wall placement was down. They wanted a cheeky pick against Vote on that left-hand side, but it took too long, and that's where the danger really fell for them. As soon as that Vote ult went through, get out. There's no surviving there. You know Space Station's coming.
That's the fight that the Renegades picked. They sold out for Barracuda, and were unable to lock that one down, and the rest went for SSG. That's, I guess, really what we talked about with Space Station, that would kind of blow you in, slow play it, suddenly find a fight that works perfectly for themselves. That's going to open up some confidence for locking down this Gold Fury. They do burn the River's Rebuke, but small price to pay for what is now a 2.5 thousand gold lead, 3,000 in the XP department. Still some scaling to be done, of course, for Barracuda, but Vote, I think, Hindu will match that in kind. So this is a great position for SSG to be in.
And take into account, if you take away that last fight in the dual lane where they try and pick Vote there from Renegades, they were in the lead in this game overall. And after that, they are now down in kills, down in gold, and down in fury. Like, it's pretty impactful of how much of a swing Space Station can make of a small mistake, of a small overcorrection. And now they're on the hunt, being aggressive, and Jake's could be in trouble here. Oh, good jump, good jump.
The question is, what can Lasbra do, I guess? I mean, he's 2-1-0, has both of the kills for the Renegades. Barracuda's fallen a level behind. Jake has maintained equity, I suppose, with his counterpart over there. But you look really across the board. Jungle is somewhat even. Dardes has a level lead. It's really out of the solo lane as well, where Nika has started to pull ahead of SOT on this Cthulhu. And I guess Amaterasu over the last few games has been kind of the one answer for a solo laner that can hang with Cthulhu in some of these big team fights.
I think it's more Cthulhu can hang with Amaterasu in the laning phase,
Sure.
honestly, because Amma's doing great at the moment in terms of statistics. Like, I think she's really potent. But look at what Nika's done. I know we've not spoken about solo lane too much this game. We've seen him rotate once. But when the
Right.
pressure was on the duo side with Lasbro ganking effectively and consistently, and there was a lot of focus to the left-hand side, Nika started proxying waves, trying to keep the pressure in that lane, keeping Solo War Troll trapped. But it's also just continue with his trend to try and get that lead, so when he rotates into those fights, he's able to not miss experience, where there's a slight chance or two where Solo War Troll, it's been a bit of a different story for him on that last rotation, and so that's where the level lead has come from there too. I like the style of these compositions though. I want to say, like, the rise of Cerberus, the rise of Nemesis, Cthulhu and Amaterasu, they're going to be staples for a while for me, I think, in the long run, with how the meta is starting to shake out, and I expect to see more of them. And funny enough, it kind of screams to me without knowing, because I don't know who scrims who, but Renegades and Ghost, you know, decisions in terms of drafts feel similar. So I'm not sure how much they've really been scrimming as of late, because I know Ghost has had some issues with Panda Cat not being available, but hey,
Right.
do they need to scrim after today, right? Maybe they don't anymore. We'll see on come Sunday.
Yeah. This is now an important game for SSG to stay undefeated and keep pace with Ghost here in this league. Going to be a lot of fun to watch that matchup just over the horizon. As Pyromancer being looked at by both teams here, SSG are going to pull this one out thanks to Nika, but Renegades are able to respond in kind with a little pressure of their own. Again, Renegades have good ward coverage all on the backside of that Pyromancer pit. It's making use of it in either aggressive plays or kind of just sniffing out where SSG are rotating through. It's really going to be important. Still hovering right around that 2,000 gold differential, so not all said and done here just yet for the Renegades. But the pressure has obviously slowed down, I think, a little bit, Graham, on the left side of the map, where we saw Lasbra early and often over trying to gank out Raffer, trying to gank out Vote. Haven't quite seen that same presence. Now instead maybe it's Cheerio looking for Barracuda.
That was beautiful. Barra smelled that danger there. Did you notice the pathing that he did all the way around? I think he just caught some vision of Cheerio, but he didn't show it either. You know, like normally you'd look at a god or something like that, or like he just continued on his path like, nope, you don't see me, I don't see you, I promise you. Just keep going where you're going, and did a full circle back so we could see if that was going to be more of an issue. So small little play there. I do want to talk a little bit though about that Typhon's fan you mentioned. Barra's mentioned himself, honestly, like, you've listened to him, he's not 100% sold yet himself whether it's a good idea or not, but he likes what he gets out of this item. I mean, the mana's going to be used for staying in lane longer. You still get lifesteal just like you would from a Bancroft's Talon or a Hakate, but it just has a little bit of pen on it too. I'm not a huge fan of it, if I'm honest. I do think Hakate is better, but if the big picture is, if everyone's screaming about Hakate being too OP, then it's going to get nerfed. And if it gets nerfed, what's the point in building it right now anyway? Just adjust for the next step, which maybe would be this build anyway. Who knows? I don't think it's a big point to make of it. I just think his power spikes are just slightly, which might be based off where Sol and where Renegades want to play, but right now, they're going to defend this Pyro!
Ooh, SSG locked down the Pyromancer. Frenzy popped right at the pivotal point there, so that won't be available for the next fight. River's Rebuke used, Jake's ultimate down from an attempted kill just a few moments ago, so relatively even standing. Venenu, looked at by Vote, Dardes, and Raffer, has to backflip his way away. Jake rip-tided right back in. Has an Ankh, but not much else in the way of defense here. Baiting though, Renegades are here to answer. Nika, dazzling offensive, won't connect for damage or stun. So SSG get pulled in just a little bit, burn one final ultimate on the end. Nothing comes of it.
No, but something does come of it, though, because Jake was forced back to base there, Dave, and what does that open up straight after a Pyro? The Fury on cooldown. Spacestation are just pulling them apart now, and I think that's something that I expected to see a little bit better from Renegades here. They need to realize that they need to group two, because Spacestation are already starting to group up a little bit earlier. Notice that little skirmish in mid lane, as you will. Vote was there, and Nika was there before. Barracuda was there, and Solo War Troll. You've got to get there with the punch, or you've got to try and make something happen elsewhere if you're not going to. And I think that's where there's been a bit of a deficit now. Ever since we saw that little play in the duo lane where they try to pick Vote, things have started to fall apart from Renegades, and Space Station are now the ones taking control of this game.
That's right. It's sort of the, I like the way you word that, sort of punch versus counter punch, or punch versus recoil, and Renegades are the ones kind of recoiling. Not that Jake hasn't looked for maybe an opening ultimate here or there, just hasn't quite worked out on their favor. And this is where, you know, it's the small minutia of the game. Cheerio has been living on the Renegade side of this right-hand jungle since the onset, and that slowly put Lasbra behind in the grand scheme of things. Venenu now being looked at by Cherio. This nemesis sure does hurt. Any dash available.
Okay.
We have to return to that in a moment because Lasbra's found a kill. Both junglers in the kill feed here. Lasbra trying to retreat away. Double stun from SOT as Rapper and Nika tanky enough to survive the onslaught here. Back to base goes Cherio, and it looks like a 1-for-1. Both mid laners down.
Yeah, really good adaptation from both two teams there, honestly. Jake forced a situation by using that cursed Ankh very early on. He was after Dardes and was hunting him down. Lasbra was there alongside him, and the backline couldn't be up for Space Station enough to keep Dardes alive. But at the same time, Cherio recognizes the situation developing there, goes all in because Neef's getting left 1v1, and Neef doesn't really want to deal with a nemesis in a 1v1. Renegades with this tier 1 tower in mid is a huge play for them though. Developing that window while Dardes is down is going to limit some of the safety that Chonga had in that middle lane now. It's not bad play from Renegades there. I just hope they can continue this trend and not telegraph it as much, because it was very obvious as soon as that cursed arc went down from Jake, they were going balls to the wall to try and make it happen.
That's right, and they somewhat did, I guess, in the grand scheme of things, a mid for mid. You know, you'd be happy with, depending on where both mid laners stand. Relatively even here up to this point. Now Cherio has found a roundabout gank. Jake has to jump away. Barracuda left alone. Easy kill there for Nika. It's a tier 1 tower, kind of playing 5th man here. So SSG will back themselves off. SOT in range. Root not down from Lasbra, but is the root there for SOT? No, it's not. Raffer, well-placed Riptide gets himself out of this one. Dardes here as well. 4 ultimates ready to go for SSG. River's Rebuke is up. Back could go SSG into the Emoja ultimate, but Jake Riptided right back in. Pulls up a couple with his ult down underneath the tier 2 tower. SOT finishes off the kill. Venenu finds the second. Renegades have found themselves an opening here. Nika still going in onto the backline. Jake survives. Dardes and Vote, they cannot collapse on the low-health members of the Renegades. But Graham, they want to keep going.
They do, and I don't think it's a good idea because Nika's going to be back with a full rotation of abilities. They've got to be careful of that. This was a very weird fight overall there, Dave. Great initial start from Space Station, though, right? They forced Jake to fall back and leave Barra isolated. Take out Barra 4v5. Period. We're starting a fight with 4v5. Renegades look for Poke to answer back the kill of Barracuda, but that means there's wave pressure because they're not clearing the wave out, so Space Station get the tier 1 tower. Funny enough, the River's Rebuke out from Raffer could have just cancelled the fight, and Renegades could have walked away going, okay, we lose the tier 1 tower. But instead, both teams continue to fight there, and it ends up working out, honestly, in Renegades' favor because the continuation of the engagement. I think there was a couple of mistakes on both teams there that they won't be happy for. I like the River's Rebuke idea because Raffer was trying to trap someone, but it did distance the fight, and then the bit too much of a dive coming through from Space Station, getting a little too greedy, gets punished heavily by Jake, who did a good job surviving.
That's right.
So back and forth between the two. It still ends up a 1 for a tier 1 tower before we take anything else into account there. So the damage was already done on the rotations.
Agreed. You got to give Jake some love, pulling back 2, and that's where the Renegades were able to find their advantage there. SSG, fully reinforced now, are going to take down the Pyromancer. So I think that's the important part. You know, Doug pulled up the XP and the gold graphs a moment ago. A little uptick for the Renegades. Not all that much, though, so SSG still feeling like they're in control of this matchup. SOT catches the dazzling offensive, has his own ultimate. Graham warning Space Station from moving too far in, and maybe this is why Vote has to use his Aegis and is unable to survive through the damage as Barracuda has found the kill. Venenu tosses out his ultimate as well. That one connects onto Cherio. Jake controlling the front line here. Big stun over onto the Renegades. Maybe prevents any further follow-up, but it's SSG again. We're searching for this fight. They only lose 1 member, but it's Renegades pulling back a small advantage.
I don't know. I think Solo Troll played that fight beautifully for my liking. Getting run down, baits them back, calls for help, help arrives, and Space Station turn around and go, oh wait, we are way too overextended, and Vote is the one punished in that engagement. Don't even know if he used a relic there. I'm not trying to insult. I'm just more like, did he even use a relic? Because he burst it so quickly based off the rotation from Renegades there, and immediately the Space Station trying to turn tail and get out of that fight. That waxing moon, if you notice, hits like 3 or 4 members, but Space Station don't fight. They just disengage off the back of it there. The mistake was made, but Space Station are limiting their loss. When they make a mistake, they try and limit their losses overall when things go bad, and it's something that some teams don't necessarily do. They try and answer back by going, well, we're down, can we make it even by fighting further into this, instead of just retreating and go, okay, reset, let's go again.
It's very easy to see a 5v4 and immediately assume that you're going to roll over the rest of the fight, but SSG smarter than that. Forced to disengage, though. It is the Aegis down for Vote, Beads down for Dardes, so something to be looked at here is the Primal Fury starting to get looked at by Barracuda. This Renegades team, almost even level-wise.
Just that little trick as well, by the way, Dave. You can see this little trick that Barra's doing, right? He wasn't really pulling the Fury for a while. He was building that passive up. Keep that passive stacked and go, hey, boys, you're going to come and fight, but look at the mid lane, Dave. Look at what they're doing. You're going to dance at the Fury? No problem. We'll take your freaking towers.
They're looking for the mid lane Phoenix now, SSGR. Primal Fury locked down by the Renegades, but you're not going to have a bird in the mid lane to defend your Titan. Cherry and Nika able to get out alive. Lasbro went back to try to defend it, but there's nothing left to defend. Vote catches the World Weaver, has to use the beats. SOT, he's gone big. Jake is looking to pull back a couple, and he's able to do so. Dardes rip-tided back, and there's a nice stun as well to follow up from Raffer Nika. He's rotated through now into this fight. Down goes Barracuda, but SOT pulls back one. Cherio has found Venenu in the back line of this fight, and it looks like running down the stragglers. SSG, they grab a mid lane Phoenix and 3 kills on the end of it.
They might be able to run it down mid if they really were interested here. Lasbra's ult down, Solo Troll's ult down. Not the easiest task in the world, but maybe the Fire Giant's the better call, and you can see him moving that way. But Renegades, they start the Fury, right? They try to force a fight there. Spacestation say, no, we'll do it on our terms. We're going to take your tier 2. Oh, you're still not going to come and defend? We'll go for your Phoenix. Renegades like, damn, man, what do? I guess we kill the Fury and then try and take a fight and catch up? But the damage has already been done. And now Spacestation and Fire Giant on 4 members. It's really a pillar or post situation there. I think the danger was when Renegades started the fight after the Fury, Dave, too, is that they always knew 2 members of Spacestation who'd taken the Phoenix were going to be coming from behind them. And it may have been a better call to just disengage and accept the Fury and the Phoenix loss. Sorry, just a Fury for a Phoenix loss and write it off as a negative, situation for them there. Because in the end, it just developed worse, which became a Fire Giant.
Yeah, a little tax strategy there. Write off your losses and keep the rest in the green. I think.
Easier said than done. Yeah, definitely easier said than done. We always get the fans at home. Yeah.
Lasbro goes back trying to maybe have something to say about that mid lane Phoenix. A little bit too late to do so. So then it's, a lopsided collapse from Nika and Cherio coming back into it. So I think well played there through and through by SSG. It's now a 7k gold differential. Still 2 tier 2 towers left on the map to take. Mid lane is going to have those fire minions pouring in. So if you are feeling comfortable enough now, if you're SSG, I mean, this is the dream as far as split push goes if you're comfortable with it. You got one, maybe a couple people pushing down one lane on one side. Renegades are going to have to respond somehow as the tier 2 tower falls again in the short lane.
And Nika's just trying to buy time over here. But you can see a couple of members still hanging out here. He's letting the rest of his team know, hey, for you on the left-hand side, do not worry, because I can see Neath in lane, and I just saw Sol. There's no way they're going to defend this tower. That's a free another tier 2 on the left-hand side because of the map position and what their knowledge is of the game. And look at Nika still delaying the backs, making sure it's going to be a 4v4 at best-case scenario. And that's why you see this commit from Spacestation early.
Frenzy used by Raffer now. How do the Renegades respond? It's Jake going in, but he's in alone. Vote is just going to be able to dash right back out. The Cerberus, red HP, unable to re-engage. But you can't say the same for Cherio. He's found Barracuda a couple attacks away from finishing off the kill, but Nika's there to put the icing on the cake. Left side Phoenix still left standing, but SOT is the last pillar of hope. Has to make his way back to the Titan room. 5 members strong for Space Station, 4 members with the FG buff.
They're going to go right Phoenix as well. Not a surprise here. There's still 4 members alive. Neef has an ultimate, not the biggest one in this situation, but they are respecting the damage they've got. Look at Nika go to the back, though. Force out Venenu again. Phoenix drops. Can they call this already, Dave?
Wow, Nika stays alive as well. Venenu finally finishes off the kill, but SOT too deep. In onto the front line here. Dardes will knock down the solo laner. Barracuda still 20 seconds left from respawning. Vote melting away the health bar of Venenu out of the mid lane. Titan being looked at. River's Rebuke crashes its way down. SSG run away with game number 1.
Beautiful plays from SSG. We talk about how good they are when we get to that midpoint in the game, and they sync up as a unit. And really, for me, they are a really good counterpunch team, Dave. A lot of players are, a lot of people are saying the European playstyle, it's slow, it's methodical. Well, that's to do with playing to their strengths and not their weaknesses.
Right.
Let the other team make mistakes and capitalize on it. Renegades got to a great start. They make a mistake, they get heavily punished. Again, another mistake at the next Fury. Punish mistake, cost him a Phoenix, cost him the game. Great play from SSG. Honestly, I'm not terribly upset with what Renegades did. When you think about the mistakes there, Dave, it really is someone needs to be looking at that mid lane and not letting Cherio get that tier 2 tower. That's about minion killing that and making sure you're in position, and that is where it all stems from.
Right, you can see kind of the mistakes for the Renegades were usually a big sweeping team fight, where SSG, they make a mistake, they disengage after only losing one member on their side. So SSG certainly came to play here. They showed the Renegades that in game number 1. Now up 1-0, one game to go potentially for SSG to end out the set. We'll go back to the desk, though, to break down game number 1.
Thank you so much, Dave. And Mifflin, I'm having trouble deciding where I want to start the conversation, whether it's Raffer's insane walls early on that help them win fights, whether it's, fights oriented specifically around the Gold Fury, the fact that Chang'e just came in, did really, really well. So instead of me trying to choose where to go, I'm just going to go ahead and let you take it where you want to go. What stood out to you most in that game?
I mean, it really was that it wasn't even that Spacestation was necessarily making proactive plays to win the game, and I think Hindu highlighted it perfectly. They're a counter-punch team. If Renegades make one mistake, okay, well, you exposed your chin, bud, I'm going to punch it. And that's exactly what happened. I think it's really apt to highlight that last Gold Fury fight. There, we saw that Renegades didn't really know whether they wanted to fully engage once they saw Spacestation knocking on the door of their Phoenix. Lazar kind of hovers around for a little bit, starts his back, decides that, I won't get there in time, I have to get back into this engagement, and then he kind of meanders around a little bit longer, and his team had already lost the fight at that point and their Phoenix, and by the time Lazar got involved, Spacestation already rotated back from Renegade's Phoenix and was in the fight. Just a little bit of a misplay there kind of changes the face of the game greatly.
I think it's easy to look at, especially in these cases, where Cherio or Nika are having these huge impacts, but I cannot help but drool over how good Raffer's ults were early on. It's the same thing that was happening, I believe, last week for Ghost, where you just have these Yamoja walls that are coming up, and they just perfectly lock down whoever they're trying to, whether it was Jake, whether it was SOT, no matter what, they found a right target. And I think the duo lane, as you had highlighted, as maybe being very important here for Renegades, ended up kind of staggering and maybe suffering a little bit. Lasbra didn't have the damage you expect to see out of this jungle, and when those three factors fall apart for Renegades, it feels like the team just can't do much. Even though Cthulhu was top damage in the game, even though he was able to do everything in his power there for SOT, it all falls apart there. It was good gods in good hands with good... I think we keep using the term methodical. Maybe it's getting overused at this point. But patient play from Spacestation. They recognize that they don't have to force anything to happen. It's going to either unfold in front of them and they can counter it, or they're just going to take advantage of it because the lead they've gotten over the last couple of minutes. So if you're changing for Renegades, a solid early game, how do you transition that better into the late game?
I think it was Renegades were looking a little bit too much to get proactive on their plays. I think it was around the 11-minute mark we saw that they tried to gank out the duo lane, but they weren't able to execute on it quite quickly enough. Jingwei gets up into the air, she hovers for a little bit, and instead of disengaging, the Renegades just kind of set up camp under Jingwei and say, well, when she lands, we'll kill her. But by that point, Vote had already bought so much time that the majority of SSG rotates in and wins the fight on the tail end of it. I think Renegades just need to clean up their execution just a little bit.
Well, we'll have to see whether or not they can pick up the execution after they pick up a draft that works for them as we move here into picks and bans for game number 2. Based on the votes for this week, I think both in client as well as in general, SSG are favored overall in this one. So Renegades having a little bit more work cut out for them to try and get to the top. And after the way the first game went, it's definitely going to be an uphill climb as Spacestation showcasing once again their willingness to play anything and everything, just the same way we would describe Sanguine in Phase 1. They just want to do it better than you. The difference is that Sanguine will play all of it as opposed to just the top percent.
Yeah. I think that really Renegades need to adjust some of these picks, right? You can't let Rafferty get that Yamoja again. With Cerberus and Soul in your duo lane, that should be getting pressured the majority of the time. Cerberus has huge wave clear. Soul has fantastic mage wave clear as well. But just because Rafferty's on that Yamoja pick, he gets so much pressure in the lane. He's got a little bit of wave clear, but it's mainly just that damage, constantly looking for the stuns, looking to poke them out. That Renegades weren't even able to utilize their draft in the duo lane. You got to address that one for sure.
Well, now we're coming through, and I was expecting to see maybe some changes of pace overall in terms of the bans, but Renegades seem pretty happy with theirs. Aphrodite, Freya, Heimdall coming through, and Persephone, Olarun, and, well, we'll see what the flavor is at the very end of it. Cerberus looked pretty good, but it's the Xing Qin, again, that the SSG are going to opt to take away here. And that was something that was interesting. We've seen a lot of Cerberus over in the duo lane, maybe more successful for Ghost than we got to see so far out of the Renegades. But, you know, Jake has been the topic of conversation in the past because on his best day, he can absolutely put the team on his back and pull them to a victory, or at least he will die trying in that case. Do you think this Xing Qin is strong enough that they have to take it away, or does his Cerberus kind of hit the same marks and make things work?
I think that the Cerberus has a lot more trade-off. If you want to jump in and play aggressive on Cerberus, you're risking your life. If you want to jump in and play aggressive on Xing Qin, well, you jump in, you drop the root, you jump out, you use your CC immunity with high mobility. It doesn't really take away too much from his movement speed when he goes into that washing machine ultimate. Xing Qin is just so much safer, and with his passive having so much HP 5 in it, even if you're trading out 50% of your health bar to do a little bit of damage to the enemy team, you'll be able to heal it up over time. So I think taking away Xing Qin, just removing that degree of safety from Awesome Jake, is going to be fantastic for them. Now he's got to make these hard-to-make decisions. Do I want to go in here and potentially lose my life, or do I want to play a little bit further back? It's a great way to mitigate what Jake is known for doing.
Well, so far I'm having a lot of deja vu, although the Nemesis finally shaking things up a little bit there for Renegades. Cthulhu Nemesis is a very solid way to highlight this and start things up. I think harkening back to what you had mentioned earlier, that kind of combination, Nemesis doesn't have a lot of CC, Cthulhu has a lot of good CC, so you put them together, it equals a smiley face, at least for Renegades as of right now. And taking this Yamoja away from Raffer feels pretty good. Renegades, you know, I think I had said this about SSG last game when we went into the second round of bans, but this feels like 3 of the best gods in their role picked up here for Renegades.
It's looking incredibly strong. I mean, Yamoja likely is the best support, as you highlighted. Nemesis has been seeing so much priority. And again, you already brought it up, Cthulhu's going to make up for a lot of that lack of CC. Well, Yamoja's going to do that as well. She's got a stun in her kit. Those walls can be hugely impactful. It's a fantastic counter pick. Make sure that Raffer won't be able to control the long lane. Renegade's draft is looking incredibly strong, and now SSG are going to have to adjust a little bit going into that second pick phase.
Well, they lock in that Hebo, and they ban out a Thor coming through, so I think expecting Renegades maybe to have a little bit more fun overall. I mean, Nemesis already being there, Cthulhu already being there. I feel like that'd be, I guess, a solo lane target, and thinking that the Cthulhu could potentially swing over into the support role, but I mean, with the Yamoja there, I don't know. It feels like a weird shuffle for that Thor ban, so I'll just let it sit down there and maybe have you touch on it. Beneath the Achilles, and now the Chang'e even being banned out. I mean, we got to see her banned once in Phase 1, and I believe SSG actually banned her against Radiance of all teams, or maybe it was Renegades, I can't remember. It was one of the R teams that came through. She was played twice throughout as well, so it's interesting to see her take that priority after this first game.
I mean, it was performing incredibly well. She was able to maneuver around the team fights deftly. It was really hard to lock her down. The movement speed came into play. We saw 2 3-second stuns come through from that ultimate. That's not easy to do. And if you're getting that kind of pressure out of your mid lane pick, might as well make sure it doesn't happen again. To address that Thor ban, it's just got to be a miscommunication, man. I mean, the jungle, the support, I mean, all of it's already been locked in. The solo laner as well. Thor's not going to be played in the hunter role, and you're certainly not going to play him mid. So I think SSG just make a slight mistake there. But I like what we're seeing from both teams now. Renegade's picking up the new Wa. That's going to be a pretty safe pick for yourself in mid.
Yeah.
He's got a lot of self-peel. Use that CC immunity ultimate to avoid a lot of trouble. Chernobog's going to be able to rotate into these fights incredibly well. and SSG have to go a little bit deeper into their pockets, picking up Cupid, which I don't think is anyone's surprise. That god is looking incredibly dominant right now, and Kuzenbo is one of Raffer's comfort picks. Their draft is looking incredibly strong. They've got late game hyper carries, flanked with 2 incredibly tanky frontliners.
I'm really excited to see Nuwa just because I want to know how she's going to build, but man, Yamoja, Chernobog, I mean, there's some mobility in that kit, but I think Kuzenbo's going to have a heyday over there in the duo lane. Does Cupid, his early game was buffed specifically around minions, but do you think his damage is going to be enough to really shut them down early on? Or is it going to be maybe slower pace because while you have that aggressive support, maybe your Hunter can't follow up as much for SSG?
I think that Cupid is likely to go into the mid roll, and
Oh
with
yeah,
that
wait, my
recent
brain
buff
just
to
fried
Heart
because I
Bomb-
realized there's Jingwei and Hebo.
Yeah, with the recent buff to
Oh,
Heart
what did I
Bomb
do?
doing additional damage to minions, it might be a lot harder for Clay Soldiers to get value. Drop the Heart Bomb, instant kill the Clay Soldier. If you've got the stun built up, you know it's going to hit Nuwa as well. Fields of Love to separate the team fight, the sustain around that 3v3 in mid could be a very strong pick.
Well, I'll answer my own question. Jingwei won't have any issues over there with Kuzenbo, so I'm excited to see what SSG are going to be able to do with their duo lane aggression, but more importantly, how the Renegades are going to handle it here in Game 2.
Well, unfortunately, Gormizer, I've got to flip it on you once more. It's Cupid over in the long lane with the Kuzenbo. Dardes in the mid lane with this Jingwei. Right, I mean, no other way that one turns out. Game number 2 on the table here for us, SSG versus the Renegades. I guess that's a good spring point. Dardes, mid lane Jingwei versus Vote Cupid over here on the long lane.
Doesn't surprise me to see the Jing in the mid, mainly because look at how they did their picks and banned Spacestation. They held their potential mid lane pick to last and looked to flex Jing there if needed. And it's more matchup specific, right? So what they're really trying to do is get something going in the dual lane a little bit more. Heart bombs can be a little bit more impactful and can stem the bleeding a little bit more, I would say, than the Jing Wei will offer. It's less of a defensive lane coming out from from Spacestation this time round to deal with what Renegade's going to bring to the fray. But I do want to touch, Dave, on like the picks and bans again from Renegade's point of view. Their adaptation here, Cthulhu again, nothing wrong with it. They take the Nemesis away from Space Station. They also take the Emoji away from Space Station. And what they really found with those 2 picks is it can limit some of what Cthulhu could bring to the battlefield, especially with how the wall was used by Rafa in Game 1. Limit that River's Rebuke being available means that Cthulhu's going to have an easier time getting to the back, but there's still plenty of safety on the side of Space Station's comp.
It's one thing I think we've been able to say about the Renegades from the start. They're 1 and 2 so far in the phase, but they have figured out at least their meta, what they want to play, and the counter adaptation, I guess, as you would word it, has been there for the Renegades.
Yeah.
So we'll see now if they can adapt with what they brought in Game 1, which were some early game ganks over to this long lane. They pressured out Vote pretty heavily, basically on cooldown of the beads that Barracuda now has to use. Rafa running wild all of the sudden. Stunned down, slows this one down, but Vote,
Shell.
he dashes in as well. Shell used by Jake, in and out of the wall goes Barra. Lots of actives used, I guess 2 being lots. 100% of the actives used in the long lane here, and Jake and Barracuda escape alive.
Great little tussle, actually. I think you could break that down from everyone's point of view of what happened there. But notice how Jake uses the shell, and moments later, Barra hits level 2. And that was the power play we've been talking about this dual lane of the support getting ahead a little bit early there. And it was a big swing, because that shell bought enough time there for Barra to hit level 2 and get his escape available. And that's why there wasn't over-panic there. But you can just see why this Cupid's in lane right now alongside the Kuzenbo. The pressure situation is a lot better than it would have been with a Jing Wei alongside you.
That's true. Extra follow-up from Vote, and the desk, I think, correctly figured that the early game damage from this Kuzenbo is going to be enough to maybe set up some kills. Plenty of sustain, though, is kind of the counterpoint there. Especially when you got the Emoja in your lane, plenty of pots as well to heal yourself up. But that, I mean, regardless, Hindu, that's surprising. I mean, it's a push, and then what? Like 1 heart bomb lands, and this Emoja's down to half HP.
Think about the lack of control you have with your character for such a long period of time there, right? So you get hit by the pull from Kuzenbo, he's pushing you into the minion, so you're taking damage there, and as soon as that wears off, you eat a heart bomb. So you know in a second or two's time, you're going to get stunned again. So it's a CC chain, but it's just an extended one that you wouldn't really think about too much there. And I love the pressure that's being shown here from Vote and Rafa. The thing is, Rafa's showing what he's going to do now time and time again by running at them and looking for this pull, or this push, this sumo slam. So once that's worked out, out, they can start to play around it a little bit more, or maybe do the opposite and go aggressive and all in the Cupid while he's doing that. So it's really a game of, you know, rock, paper, scissors, so to speak, a lot of the time, with how you can play those later phases.
It's a game of chicken, per se, and up to this point, Rapper has been finding a lot of the early engagements, but it's actually kind of tilting back in favor of the Renegades here. They pulled themselves one level ahead of the SSG counterparts on the other side. I think Chernobog's an interesting pick here. We've seen absolutely some play out of this god, and actually to pretty good effect, especially into the later stages of the game. But I think a good global presence really across the board for Renegades. You look at the Nuwa ultimate, the Chernobog ultimate as well. Those two paired together are going to be good in some team fights.
It feels a lot like, with the meta going the way it is, it's all about survivability for the carries. And Barracuda playing Chernobog, just like Sol, a lot of survivability in that kit. Take into account the Into the Darkness, you can jump in the wall and stay in there for quite a few seconds to buy time for your team. But that's one of the reasons we've got this Cupid pick, right? Because you want to try and force him to use the ultimate to disengage, or his beads and his escape if he drops down this Fields of Love. So you're really pigeonholing Barra to be very careful about the Fields of Love and making sure that he can't just keep using his Into the Darkness to escape the damage potential. It's going to cost him beads, or it's going to cost him an ult. And if Vogue can keep forcing that situation against Barra, it means he's not got that global rotation available, or that availability to buy as much time as he once had when ganks come knocking.
And I think, you know, and kind of on the other side of that conversation, even outside of Barracuda, Venenu having kind of the global ward, I guess, for just a moment. If you look at what SSG were kind of doing in Game 1, it's these poking your head into a strange part of the map, some rotations behind the Renegades, starting off the fights aggressively. I mean, that's all something that Venenu can help with as well, depending on some of the timing there from the ultimate whenever he drops that one down. The solo lane didn't see all that much pressure, though, Hindu, in game number 1. It was sort of the rotations into those early team fights where things really started to spring up for SOT and Nika. Now could be a good moment. A small scrap over the blue buff being started up as the long laners have been left alone. The ultimate dropped down onto Cherio. Water Carpet will get the hero largely away from this one, and the Renegades are going to have to backpedal.
Now, obviously, we saw the Hebo pick up, we're not mentioned it there, but there's a prime example of why Hebo is very good against Nemesis. Use that final judgment, it slows. Slice and dice, it slows. Guess what the wet paper does from Hebo? It removes slows and gives you a speed boost. So you're not so worried about that. And not only that, against the Nemesis, that shield that she's got, that Retribution shield, it's fantastic. But if you use a knock-up on her, the shield goes away. And what does Cherio have on Hebo? He's got a knock-up. So Hebo's a really good god to play in against the likes of a Nemesis. Not only that, when you think about Cthulhu and how that wet paper is going to help out against Cthulhu, just lets his team get away from the damage zone a little bit quicker. It's a smart pick from Spacestation yet again. And it's not to knock Renegade's compositions, by the way, because I feel Game 1 and Game 2, I really like their drafts. It makes a lot of sense to me. They've just been outplayed at certain moments.
Jake uses the River's Rebuke there in the mid lane. I was looking at the Harpy timers. There's no Harpy to be locked down there. I'm not sure. Either way, Jake doesn't have his ultimate.
So what he's doing is trying to lull Spacestation in to go for a gank now, right? Because he's like, hey guys, my wall's down. He showed them the way. Because he doesn't need it, you know? He doesn't need it at this point in time. But what he can do is try and force Spacestation to think they've got an advantage and turn on him. He's a genius. 408 is above our mental capacity day to day, and it shows.
Well, SSG haven't taken that bait just yet. Maybe now Rapper has a moment to do so. Oracle's in for SSG, so we now see, or rather, all of SSG sees Jake pushed back to half HP. Venenu hovering somewhat close by here, so this would be a 3 versus 2 engagement. Rapper and Vote looking towards this purple buff. Jake Rivers Rebuke half back off of cooldown. No real answer from SSG as far as rotations go. Happy to just be, I don't know if you call it wasting, but using the time of one extra member of the Renegades.
And that's what the key is there. They're wasted using that time. But Solo and Troll, while that's going on, you can see that Spacestation do look for an advantage, you know? Pressure the right-hand side.
There it is.
3 members of Renegades and left. Let's go right. What's up? Well, the good news is Renegades are doing a very good job of buying time and making sure that they don't lose anything from the map. They're doing a good job of farming their jungle first, so the Spacestation don't find a win, although a blue buff's a win at the end of the day.
It is. It's brought to you by Venenu having to rotate to the left and somebody having to cover the mid. Lots to be looked at there, I think. Lasbra looking to find A more solid advantage in the form of a kill here. Dashes out of the Rivers Rebuke. Down goes Rapper. It's Jake who picks up the first kill of the game. Rivers Rebuke off of cooldown at the perfect time, and the Renegades strike first.
Yeah, obviously the Rivers Rebuke doesn't really come into play there. Good slip of the noose from Rafa for a long time there, but his team just weren't around, and that was a great play from Renegades. Now they might be able to capitalize on this red. You can see the pings going down the left, because Cupid's on the way. 3v3 coming up.
Dardes plugging away plenty of damage, though, into Jake, who does not have the ultimate to escape this time around. Dardes answers back with a kill. Red buff was dropped just a moment ago, I believe, by SSG. Let's see if somebody goes over and picks it up. Small price to pay, though, for maybe a kill here. Is Awesome Jake still respawning back. Lasbra follows up as well. Vote has now picked up his first kill of the game. Venenu hovering in his mist here. Dardes one side, Vote on the other. Barracuda here for some extra damage support as well.
Ow.
Airstrike connects. See you later, Venenu. Vote has his second.
Yeah, Double Hunter is pretty good right about now. As you can see, they're not
think so.
too terrible in the meta, especially when you've got someone like Dardes who can pilot pretty much everything in that mid lane. I do want to talk a little bit about what we were talking about when things go wrong in the jungle trying to make amends elsewhere. Barracuda doesn't rotate to that fight while Vote is defending the red. Instead, he forces Vote to lose a wave in lane, but you can see the level discrepancy starting to develop already. I mean, mids ahead, duos ahead, supports and solos, the only ones really even at the moment. And that was really there. It felt like Cherry was out of position, and he was, but he's a Hebo and can escape a lot of dangers there that were presented to him by the Renegades.
It's purple buff being looked at once more by Rapper here. Likely no large fights to come of it, but it is dropped down and secured this time by Barracuda. No advantage really given up on either side of the map. But SSG starting to exert a little extra pressure. Look at the ward line they have, effectively across from the red buff all the way over to the blue buff on the Renegade side of the jungle here, and that's just their MO again. They have these buff timers on a cooldown, and you know, it's only a 1.5k gold differential, but they know where the Renegades are going to be in their jungle and maybe start to pull an advantage that way.
Completely agreed. I'm actually thinking a little bit about objectives now as well, Dave, because when you look at the objective clear that both teams have, I'm favouring Space Station Gaming overall. They've got a bit of a better secure with having Hebo. Sure, you might not want to use the ultimate against it, but you could. But you've also got double hunters, which are going to shred those objectives down very, very quickly.
Oh, yeah.
And that could surprise Renegades a little bit. And the good news for Renegades, though, they do have New War for using that vision, that global ultimate, to get vision on the enemy team, to get an idea of that. But now Solo Troll's caught in an awkward spot, and he needs help. The team's on the way, but can they get here in time? It looks like Space Station have actually chosen a different target in Jake in mid.
Oh, Jake just a bit caught out between a couple members of SSG. Riptide to close the gap. Airstrike, the last tick of damage, misses, and Jake can walk right through it. Well played by the Emoja there, but now Rapper bit on the wrong side of the engagement. SOT dashes his way in, won't be able to root down anyone. Nika has found the dazzling offensive kill over onto Lasbra. Massive damage there from that ability. SOT pops his ultimate as well. Looks like a 1 for none, and SSG are happy with it.
All started with that rotation. Solo Troll gets caught on right-hand side, proxy farming. Team rotates into support. Space Station catch and pincer the rotation. They get hold of Jake. Jake's on the defensive the entire time there, uses his shell and ultimate. But Space Station overextend, and that gets punished back potentially by Lasbra coming in. But the problem is that Cherio showed up too. So you can just see how the flow of the game has been going there. I like the idea from what Renegades were trying to do to answer that back, especially after Rafa used everything in that engagement. But the power of that wet paper, people always talk about him having 3 ultimates. Certain times and certain compositions, he's got 4.
Yeah, the water carpet in the right moment makes a world of difference. Certainly did there. And Cherio has now pulled himself 2 levels ahead of Lasbra here up to this point, despite only having 1 more assist. It's really those 2 deaths, I think, on Lasbra, really widening that gap with the jungle counterpart in Cherio on the other side. A different look at a Nemesis from what we saw last game, swinging early and often there for Cherio. Now Lasbra's going to have to find a way to get involved from slightly behind, maybe looking a little bit more ability-based, depending on if that ends up into a Golden Blade later on there for Lasbra. But got the Brawler's Beat Stick, a little extra anti-heal online early out of the jungle. Wow. Maybe would have helped there under Rapper, but not much in the mid lane.
I was going in for Vote. He knows the supports were in mid lane and the pressure was on, so he's going to take a boxing match against Vote. Beads were used early on here, Dave, but it's taken a while.
He's going to get stunned down. Vote not shying away from the engagement. It's into the wall and
play from
out
Barra.
to save Barracuda here. Raffer rotating through over the ward, though. So Barracuda's going to be able to walk away from this one. Still the tower there. Hasn't taken much damage. Actually, quite the opposite. SSG's Tier 1 tower in the long lane. A little bit worse for wear. Jake being looked at now by Cherio. Crushing Wave is around. Looks like Cherio won't look to follow up for any extra damage.
Yeah, big one there is Nuwa back in base. If any recalls and Space Station see that happen, so start to pressure around the red, knowing they've got the man advantage, and seeing that they didn't contest that, you know what,
Yes,
why
please.
don't we just collapse on the Fury too?
Yeah, it's free for SSG. We'll knock that one down for the largest lead so far of the game. Usually this is the answer we see. Pivotal that Nika does not steal this one away. River's Rebuke is going to try to... Oh, come on!
Got it.
And the three-man stun on the back end. Nika takes away the Pyro. Renegades, they cannot buy an advantage up to this point in this game. Nika steals away the Pyro.
No, and credit where it's due to Renegades there. They realized they're late to the Fury. That's going to go, so we go Pyro, and that was the correct call. But Nika read it like a book, turns up and gets a good ultimate off and secures it. You can't help that sometimes, you know? But the idea, the mythology of Renegades there was very intelligent with how that was played out. They just still get punished because Space Station are aware and do get a bit of luck on their side, let's be honest.
Yeah, we'll call it a coin flip there. Nika would say it's all skill, gets a big stun on the end of it, but it's a coin flip there. And
Space Station fans would be
Space
like,
Station
yeah,
getting-
that's just Space Station being Space Station. We're that damn good. But Renegades would be like, come on, can we not get a bit of hope here? Come on. Like, we didn't make a bad call on this one at all. Why are we getting punished again?
Right, punished for playing good is kind of the way of looking at it. In the gold chart, the steep decline there is Fury and Pyro taken away by SSG. Venenu able to turn around massive damage over onto Dardes, though, so you absolutely have to be careful about that, especially with the ultimate as well out of the Nuwa. A little extra damage there, and you're maybe looking at a dead Jingwei across the board. The fight will continue, though, and it's Renegades looking for it, realizing Dardes might have to exit this fight.
Good
Cherio
fight.
taken down low as well.
he
Lasbra
jumped it.
has found his way into the back line. Aegis, not enough to buy enough time for Dardes to stay alive. Ultimate not able to be used either. Cherio underneath the Tier 2 tower. Ultimate dropped by Lasbra. No follow-up available, though. And finally, Dardes goes down on the back of some great poke from Venenu.
Renegades find one pick there, and honestly, that was Space Station making mistakes for my liking there, Dave. You saw that. Oh, hold down 4. Looks like Vote's in trouble now, too.
Jake wants to open things up here. Nika back through the Riptide. Vote dashes his way away here. Lasbra finishes off the kill. Nika is not done with this one, though. Dazzling offensive beads out by Barracuda. A stun down onto the Ama. And now 2 down for SSG. Renegades not shying away from looking for some fights. Rapper is going to be pushed back. Nika absolutely swings on Barracuda. I blinked and missed it. Lasbra suddenly turned around his game as he picks up a kill onto Rapper. Split engagements here. Hindu Man kind of across the board. Lasbra, no mana, no chance. SOT will finish off Cherio. Dardes has to dash his way away. Nika maybe finishing off the kill onto the giant Cthulhu. He sure does. 3-0 killing spree now for the SSG solo lane.
Oh! He kicks out Dardes, though, before he goes down, so Nika gets the double. An absolutely ridiculous skirmish in the jungle, right? Starts off originally from the Renegades play when they realize Rapha's low on mana and Dardes is out of health after the full combination that Veneno hit with him earlier in the laning phase. Like, they didn't fall back in time, and Renegades smelt blood. Lasbra was hunting, and he ends up picking apart Dardes, but it just goes on for an extended period of time in a fight that, honestly, for my liking, I'm favouring Renegades there overall. It'll make them feel pretty good with how that skirmish went in the jungle. But that was a mistake from Space Station there. I'll call a spade a spade. They had one member with no health and one member with no mana. And Renegades abused that situation very effectively. These fights, though, Dave, over nothing. What did they get out of that, anyone? Realistically,
I don't
was
know.
just murder. Pure murder. all the objectives were down. There was nothing to fight over. I love fights like that. Arena specials.
Fun. That's right. It's a lot of fun to follow there. Renegades are going to be happy with the way it turned out. Closes that gold gap just a little bit. SSG still in the driver's seat. We saw 1 or 2 of those fights in Game 1. SSG not a team to let slip an advantage of which they have right now. But Renegades are not going to give up that easily. Rotate full over to that red buff side. Are going to lock that one down. I am curious, though, Graham. Dardes picks up the Devo's gauntlet, finishes off his boots. And what looks like a Berserker shield on the mid lane Jingwei. What do you make of that?
I mean, we've seen a couple of these Berserker shields later on in the game, right? It gives you a bit of defense and survivability, but it also, like, boosts you when you're below half health. Taking into account, when Venenu hit Dardes in mid earlier on, when we used to talk about the Shining Metal Clay Minion combo, his health went below that 50% threshold, which means that passive would kick into play, so it would be impactful. So it makes him an additional threat the lower health he gets. I'm not a huge fan of this item, but I can see the benefits of what it could bring to the table. Would I have maybe preferred to see an Atalanta's bow there? Yes, just because the run it down mid is great. But when you're a carry and you're going to get focused, you've noticed how some of these fights have gone for Dardes. He's getting hit pretty hard. So if he becomes more of a threat the lower health he gets, well, he's ended up on low health pretty effectively quite regularly so far. So it does have some method to the madness there for me.
Yeah, Venenu's gonna half HP you the moment you walk forward. I guess it's not a horrible buy, as long as you dip in beneath that 40% threshold. Primal Fury looked at by SSG. Awesome Jake in range. Awesome Jake has nothing to say about it. Squeaky clean by SSG to lock down that Fury. The rotation over to the mid lane being looked at. SOT catches Water Hands. Dash away, though, beneath his tier 1 tower. Now just looking to push this advantage elsewhere on the map.
Yeah, I think some of what I can see out of Renegades is really the communication of when they're backing is something that they really need to work on. I feel like they kind of get caught a little bit when a couple of them have backed, or they've backed at a time and people haven't realised it in enough time to cause an issue, and now a fight is forced on Cherio.
Cherio has to ult away from this one. River Tribute doesn't find much value. Aegis out. Venenu was looking for the execute there. Dardes will drop back into the fight. SOT finishes off Cherio here, but Dardes has found free range to swing away on the big old target. Dardes pulls one back. 1-for-1 trade as we stand. Jake, no ultimate to stay alive. No ultimates really for the Renegades. SSG still have 3. Dazzling offensive, first of 3. 1 stun down onto Venenu. Beads out by Barracuda. Nika pulling the strings of this engagement will dash back in. Aegis out from Venenu, and Nika not dissuaded from continuing to push his way in. Vote Fields of Love drops down. See you later, Jake. Dardes, airstrike up and over. Barracuda falls down to Nika as well. Venenu, 3-man stun won't be enough. Dardes has the double. Big fight for SSG.
And Lasby gets zoned away by Rafa at the tail end. That was a commit again. It was mainly Spacestation pulled up Pyro for a second, and immediately you see Solo Troll go all in on Cherio. Granted, they get that kill on Cherio, but the rest of the fight, they invest a lot in their Renegades to continue that chase, use all their ultimates, and Spacestation, as you said rightly so, Dave, had 3 ultimates up, and Spacestation like, well, I guess we should fight them now, knowing we've got all these ults available. And that fight now turns into a Fire Giant, and now a Pyromancer on top of that. Spacestation just blow the game even further wide open. We're closing on a 10k lead now.
Yeah, right around that 9k mark as we stand, and it's going to get worse. Because you look at the towers that are on the map, I always like to look at the towers. As of me saying that, as of me starting the sentence rather, there were still 6 towers able to be taken down. Now down to 4, tier 2 in mid, and over in the short lane, of course, and then long lane still having both. So SSG has been able to build up this lead purely based on kills and stripping away the jungle and some objectives here and there.
Agreed, that just shows you like a 10k lead at that point with no towers down, or just close to. That's a really reflective result of how well they do at farming consistently. And I think it's something the viewers can take at home, because we've seen a lot of games, not this specifically, but a lot of Space Station games so far, where they've been down in kills, and people are like, wow, they're playing really bad. But then you look at it, they've got a 4 or 5k lead. They are farming effectively in the map. And to study how to keep your levels and how to find farm, it's really worth just continuing to watch Space Station play, because they show you a good understanding of exactly where to find these small wins, even when you're losing members of your team.
And you know, if the gold isn't bad enough here, the level differential will make you shudder if you're a Renegades fan. 2 levels in the solo, 4 levels now out of the jungle, 4 in the mid lane, 3 for your hunters. Bad to worse. You need more than 20 minutes to farm your way back into this one. If you're the Renegades here. Finally, the tier 2 towers will eventually crumble. Still 2 minutes, 20 seconds left with the Fire Giant buff on full 5 members for SSG. They opt for a split, 3-2 at the moment. Plenty enough of an advantage, especially when you got Nika on your side. 5-0-2 out of the solo lane. Just waiting for some of these fire minions to crash in. Finish off the left side Phoenix.
They do get the left-hand Phoenix, but I love what Space Station do there, Dave, too. They don't want to group against Renegades, right? Because that's when the power of Cthulhu will really show you. And Barrett is getting the form that he needs to try and be the carry this team wants in the later stages. So sure, they were going to lose a Phoenix there. Getting a bit more global gold for the team, not a problem. Getting Barrett some more levels, not really an issue, because they're going to need him to try and defend here.
Over to the right, immediately back to base. This is the fight that could end the game for SSG. Big staggers out, and Venenu is going to finish off the kill, but immediately turned around by Dardes. Cheerio trying to sidestep. Sustains on the speed buff a little bit, but no running away from Cthulhu. Destiny arrives for Cheerio, and down he goes. Venenu finds the big stun onto Rapper as well. Dardes having to backpedal. Berserker shield, save me now, but it's a double kill from Venenu. A killing spree out of the mid lane, and Renegades have found their fight.
But what can they get off it, Dave? And that's what I'm looking at the map. I mean, is it tier 2 in mid if they're lucky? Maybe the Phoenix are right. Actually, no, there's minions down there. Okay, Renegades might be in this one unless Nika can try and defend here, Dave. This isn't an end, just to be clear, before everyone starts getting too excited. But this Phoenix is kind of important. I know, I heard it. I'm like, no, Dave, this is not an end. Just be clear. They're going to be back. But this Phoenix is kind of big for them if they can get this. It's not doom and gloom as it once was. It kind of puts them almost on an even keel. But can Nika defend is the question.
Yeah, he needs to try to just survive as long as he can. Rapper back off of respawn rather, cooldown I suppose. If you look in the depth department, Nika half HP, Thorns turning around a good bit of damage. Ultimate popped by Nika. Rest of the respawns in kind from SSG are back. Dardes 5 seconds off, but has the passive to return back to this fight a little bit quicker.
Got TP.
And it looks like the Renegades are not going to be able to get this Phoenix and maybe back themselves off.
Keep an eye on Nika. He can run for days with Amaterasu as well, and he's going to get in range for an ult and forces the ult out and gets free of it. But nobody else is there, Dave. He's slowing them down, however, and Spacestation can't base because they're too low to stick around. It's a shame because Renegades put up a really good defense there, but you just realized there wasn't much they were going to get off the back of that fight. The real hope was that Phoenix, but Nika did a good enough job of defending, which is all he needed to do.
I guess Amaterasu's pretty good, huh? I mean, she
yeah, not a bit, you know.
I'm not gonna lie, Shogun's just fun.
I do believe Amaterasu and Cthulhu are the best two solo laners, two picks at the moment in Smite, period. Like, period, there's no real other question about it. We've seen some success out of other solo layers, but those two are the standout individuals for me. And I think it's not going to end anytime soon. So, lock in and get ready to have either a Cthulhu running at you as a carry, or having an Amaterasu as a carry. Pick your poison, because both of them are hell to deal with.
Solo laners across the globe trying to get you to be a little bit more quiet. Now, yeah, not often you see the solo laner soloing up the Fury, but it's Gold Fury for SSG to now swing this back in their favor. Fire Giant back and respawn, so really when you take tally of the first Fire Giant power play, I suppose, one big team fight for the Renegades, but in the meantime, a left side Phoenix goes down, every single tower on the map that was still standing, all 6, by the way, for the Renegades, taken down. Wonder where the confidence stands if you're the Renegades on stepping out and maybe trying to contest the FG.
The good news is, though, they've got this Chernobog, and you saw the split push earlier on the tier 2 on right from Renegade's point of view. So now having a Chernobog on the left-hand side, hey, you want to come and hang out with me, Nika? And what happens as soon as that happens? Here comes Cherno over to the right-hand side, if he so chooses here. I think he's going to come back down if I was him. No, he's going in for the pick. They're looking for kills.
That's right, Nika now out of this fight, 5v4 at the moment for the Renegades. SOT, he's gone big. HP, 3 members of SSG. Dardes has to airstrike his way away. Awesome Jake unable to finish off the kill there. Dardes nearly taken down. Stays
shield,
alive. Baby. We're talking about Ama on the other side. You got Cthulhu walking at you. The 3 members of SSG left running. Now Nika able to rejoin this fight. Dazzling offensive, ready to go, but like last time, wouldn't be that much follow-up.
Still got
should he choose to continue going. Looks like Renegades may be able to escape alive, but FG started up for SSG.
Agreed, and that's the bigger picture here. Left Phoenix stays alive, and someone from Renegades has to defend it. This is forcing Renegades' hand to defend an FG after that fight. It was a good back and forth. No one really dies in that one, but what it does do is get the Phoenix up on the left-hand side for Renegades at the cost of a Fire Giant overall. So again, it's a Space Station win when you think about the bigger picture of now. There's only Phoenixes left, and one of them is already weakened down.
No beads for Barracuda, both actives for Venenu, both actives for Dardes and Vote, and Cherio on top of that. So you look strictly at actives, maybe a little bit better off our SSG for the next fight. Nika has shown us time and time again, he does not care. He'll walk face first into the rest of your team, and a half HP Phoenix is not going to put up much more of a fight there. Renegades not going to rotate over to the left-hand side of things here. Wave still pushing out, so the Fire Minions a little extra ground to cover over in the long lane. But a bit of a split works out for SSG.
And Dave, look at the split some more for SSG. 3 in mid, 2 on right. Why? Cthulhu can't fight 2 fights at the same time, okay? He can hit you over the wall, but that distance is a bit too much. So they pull them apart. They pull the Renegades comp where they found success before as a 5-man unit. They limit those options, and they just continue to just chip away at Renegade's base. It's great play from Space Station, and Renegades just have to commit, and it's a hard call to make, so I understand the issues they're having.
Venenu went big before, he's going to have to do so again here, but the backline has been dove by Rapper and Nika. Big staggers out from SOT once again. Awesome Jake with the get the kill over onto Cherio, but Venenu is down for the remainder of this fight. Dazzling offensive connects onto Jake. Into the wall goes Barra.
Okay,
SOT has finished off one more. Last time to dash through, but it's Nika still alive. He'll chip away at Jake. It's a double kill for the Amaterasu. Down goes SOT. Nika with the triple kill, and SSG take the 2-0.
Ryan was on the wall. As soon as that middle Phoenix fell, Ryan was on the wall for me with this one. I think it was a really good back and forth, if I'm honest, Dave. I love what Renegades are doing here. I think, and the funny thing is, I can really put the point on Game 1, where Renegades made a mistake or two and how badly they got punished for it. And I feel the same sort of way in Game number 2. Space Station Gaming are just that damn good at the moment, in fairness. And Renegades, you can see the mistakes they've made. They can see themselves, I'm sure, because I'm not against their picks and bans. I'm okay with their picks and bans, if I'm honest. I think they do a very good job there. And for me, that's one of the issues Barra's teams have had before, was their drafting. So no blame there whatsoever.
SSG versus Ghost. That's a matchup to keep your eyes on Sunday, as we brought to the table. 9-0-4, though, Graham, is Nika here out of the solo lane in this one. And I love kind of the priorities here, I guess, from both teams. In both drafts, they say, all right, we'll get Cthulhu, you'll get Amma. We both have strong solo lane picks. Let's see who carries a little bit harder. Game 2, that's Nika this time around. 9-0-4 out of the solo lane. SSG take the set 2-0. We'll go back to the desk, though, to round out the day.
You know, I really want to try to talk about anything else, at least to start it off, because I know where this conversation's going to go, but I think we just have to carry it from where Dave left it, Mifflin. Nika played out of his mind. I mean, you want a triple kill at the end? You want him defending a Phoenix seemingly by himself? Like, he kind of did literally everything you could do as one person in this game.
He was zoning out the enemies. He stole Pyromancer right here, 13 minutes, 30 seconds in. Off the back of the rest of his team doing Gold Fury, he defended a Phoenix 1 versus 4, completely alone. But shoutouts to the build. Barracuda decided to itemize towards crit a little bit earlier on, so he wasn't feeling very much objective damage. But that said, I mean, Nika was the star of the show here. I mean, if chat hasn't been spamming Nika diff for the last 30 minutes, they're making a mistake. And you should correct the chat if you haven't been doing it right now. This dude is nuts. I mean, even on that last siege of the enemy Titan, the entirety of SSG is kind of waiting outside the Phoenix, whereas Nika, well, he's been hanging out in the Titan room for the last 30 seconds, just waiting like a shark.
My exact quote was, he's in your base and there's nothing you can do about it. You can't stop him. And then there's this moment, I mean, this is moments before the end, and you see his positioning. Everybody else from SSG is in a fallback bait Renegades out of the base kind of positioning. Nika's running up because he was in the base with them. He has to follow them out of the base. I just think that one does come down, I think, to the solo laner having a very phenomenal performance. Also showcasing how great a good solo laner can be in your game. Yes, you're on an island for the beginning, but man, is that transition into the late game so phenomenal for you. Renegades had a lot of good moments, though. I think the call for that Pyromancer was good. They just couldn't secure it because Nika decided to turn on God mode this game. They had a lot of really good defenses, even, at the base, that they just couldn't turn into anything. The travel time across the map was playing against them. Again, Nika's God mode kind of played against them there when they got the Phoenix. But you had highlighted it, Barra having to get that Atalanta's bow after they went to take that Phoenix, stopped them from being able to pick it up. So maybe just a couple of bits and pieces here for Renegades, but like Hindu had said, a lot is falling into place. It's just whether or not they're going to get it. But right now, it is Space Station Gaming. They're the team I think everyone's eyes are on. It took them a little bit to warm up at the beginning of the year, but they seem to be on fire right now. So let's go down to an interview and see how they're feeling after this win.
That's right, Goremizer. Cherio is with me, and Cherio, I kind of want to spring off of where Gore sort of left things there. You know, a good phase 1, all things considered, for you guys. But now on a hot streak here, 4-0 to start off the phase. What's that feel like? The morale's got to be high throughout the team.
Yeah, it feels good to have 4 clean 2-0 so far. We still haven't played the best 2 teams yet, which are Ghost and Radiant, so we'll see how we do against them. We play Ghost in 2 days, so we'll see how this one goes.
Yeah, I'll get your thoughts on that one maybe to round out the interview. But I kind of want to look at this set here, specifically Game 2. Nika just sort of plays out of his mind. What'd you like from your solo laner's performance here today?
Yeah, I can always rely that if we're getting too focused, Nika's always steps up and carries. You know, like Nika has some really good games this whole season. He really stepped up, and last year as well. So he's been playing really well so far. Yeah,
they're really starting to stand out here in this league, and that kind of lends itself, I think, an interesting draft strategy from you guys. And you know, Hindu and I casting it, we kind of noted it. Cthulhu and Ama, both games, neither team seemed to band it out. Was your guys' kind of mindset there? You know, we're fine giving them the Cthulhu as long as we get the Amaterasu. Are those kind of the two big pinnacle gods you think out of the solo lane right now?
Yeah, we thought we had a good idea to what to draft into Cthulhu in case they get it. We were almost sure that they will be trading. One team will have Amy, one team will have Cthulhu, like going into the set. So we're happy with having either of them, really. So we had a really good comp into Cthulhu. He's still very strong, as you can see, like in some team fights. It's kind of hard to, if he gets to like run at your carries, which was me this game. I was just like, there's not much you can do. You just die eventually. But I kind of misplayed a couple of team fights, so I could have played that a bit better. But I think the god is very strong. Both are really good soloists right now. Yeah.
Agreed. Yeah, it took a little while to get SOT burned down, but you guys were able to do it consistently enough nonetheless to find yourself the win. Cherio, thanks for sitting down with me. Best of luck Sunday. Cannot wait to watch you guys up against Ghost Gaming. It's going to be an absolute blast to watch. But that's it for this Friday in the SPL. So we'll go back to Gormizer and Mifflin to round out the day.
Thanks so much, Dave, and of course, Cherio, thank you for joining us as well. But Mifflin, we're only on day 1 of this week. It already feels like we've had enough action and I would say fun out of today that we've been able to, well, fill 3 days with it. But we still have a few to go. But as of right now, standing up at the top, it's going to be Ghost and SSG. I'm excited to see it because there are 3 teams that are undefeated. It's going to change at some point this week. Tomorrow, we get to see Obey, E United, try to take on some of the top. E United versus Sanguine, I think a lot of people see as being closer than it could be. And honestly, I'm excited to see Obey because they were looking very solid against SSG for their early game portion last week. So I want to know what they're going to be bringing. But it is Sunday that is bringing the matchups that I think are going to be most interesting. Namely, there are 3 teams that are undefeated. That is going to go down to 2, guaranteed, because SSG and Ghost are playing against each other. And that's just going to be so fun to watch.
Yeah, I've been playing way too much Skyrim, man. I've been hitting the T button on my keyboard just trying to wait a couple days to get to this Ghost Gaming versus Spacestation matchup. Because, really, we have been hailing Ghost as the undeniable best team in the league. It seems like that's the community feedback, that's the general consensus of the majority of the casters, but I really do think, personally, that SSG are playing out of their minds right now. These guys are looking cohesive. They're bringing unique strategies. They're not winning every single game the exact same way. SSG are looking like they're able to adapt mid-set. I mean, everything's looking good from these guys.
I mean, adaptability mid-set, counterplay being kind of the cornerstone there, I think, is the big difference. I'm so excited to see it because it is that, you know, aggressor versus the counterplay, right? You have Ghosts that love to jump in and SSG that love to wait for you to jump in so they can then fight you. So it's going to be very fun. A lot of, well, I hope interesting games come out of that one. Maybe one team does end up just being better than the other and we end up looking like fools, but I just don't see that one happening. Of course, Radiant's holding on right behind them. We'll have to see how they continue their progression here through Phase 2. But that's Friday for us, Mifflin. So I think everyone, thank you for tuning in for it. Hopefully you enjoyed the games. Tomorrow, we start again, 3 p.m. SPL. Be there or be square. Either way, we'll catch you then.